Schenectady City Council Committee for Monday, October 17th, 2022. And the first committee is Finance. Mr. Mudabaran.
Thank you. I would like to call the Finance Committee to order, and the first item is the purchase of 0.15 acre Paper Street behind 588 Broadway, not being used by the city. Mr. McCarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a parcel that the city had entered into a lease agreement with the adjacent property owner. Subsequent to that, they never actually exercised that. It was an option to rent it. Subsequent to that, working with Metroplex, there's an offer on the building, and they are looking to acquire this parcel for parking for the expanded business. And because this is a paper street, it would actually require an abandonment process and then have our ability to sell it to the property owner. And, Mr. Gillen has detailed most of that out in the narrative that was presented to the council. And, I'm available, and Mr. Wallman and Mr. Gillen, if anybody has any specific questions.
Any question on this?
I'll move it.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So does this impact any other businesses or anything that's being used for in any way currently?
No. It's at the dead end, right where it would run under 890.
All right. Thank you.
If no question, we have a motion.
Second, call for a public.
Oh,
Call for public hearing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, so Metroplex is, so, this was a point, so Metroplex has brought this, we're looking at it. We have a figure of the area, so the next step is we will call for a public hearing. That's what we're gonna do tonight, and Metroplex in the meantime is going to put together an actual survey with the meets and bounds of the area that was described in the figure. That will be part of the public hearing. I would believe maybe the figure wouldn't be, but this figure would be. We would need to know what we're abandoning, the size, but we have that, but with the meets and bounds. Then we would abandon that officially after the public hearing. The city would abandon it, and then it would be on, Mr. Colden, you would then sell that parcel to.
So it's multi-step, if I may. Thank you. Multi-step, there has to be a call for a public hearing to abandon, and then separately, resolution authorizing the sale. Once it's been abandoned, there'll be a section block and lot identified for this abandoned parcel, and then a resolution authorizing the sale. I don't know the timetable on the public hearing, because we're obviously, we have the meets and bounds in the survey ready to go for that area, that portion that's going to be.
We don't have it at that, unless.
No, we don't have it.
We don't have it yet.
Okay. So this is.
Well, tonight we'll order it.
I think this was more of a discussion purpose to make sure that we're at that sit.
Right. So it will be a future public hearing on this, because we need to have the information for the public so it can be made available prior to the hearing for their review.
And then even a further step is going to be after all of that has taken place, then the abandoned parcel that is transferred to the property owner will then be merged with the existing property in my office through a lot line adjustment. So there's really, it's quite a few steps, but we can get there.
Okay.
I just, can I say something? Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council President. This is a really great company, FW Web. They're on TV all the time. I said in my memo they were started in 1899. The company called me up and criticized me. It's actually like 1860 something. So they've been around. They're in 9 states. There are 3,000 employees, and they love the building. And it's vacant now. They're gonna buy it, create 12 jobs. They need a little more parking. There's parking behind the building, but they want to buy this little tiny paper street from the city, 0.15 acres, that the council had agreed to lease previously to another company that was looking at the building, chose not to go forward. It's going to bring contractors and activity to the city, create sales tax. It's a great matchup with Marcella's next door. You go buy a new dishwasher, you go over and get your plumbing fixtures right next door. Great company, great history. They're excited to come to Schenectady. So we're really trying to get the sense of the council tonight that you support this so the company can go forward, get the property under contract, and start moving toward the sale. And that's why so important for us to be here tonight and get the sense of the council that we can go through this multi-step process as the mayor and Chris and Andrew have outlined. We have to abandon, and then we have to have a public hearing and survey the property, identify the parcel, and then add that parcel to the 588 Broadway parcel. The 0.15 acres is next to state-owned property at the end of Van Gys Lane. The state will continue to own that. FW Webb will give them an easement that'll allow people who want to pull in and turn around at Van Gys Lane to do so. So there's no issues there. And also the state needs that access to get under the bridge. They have to do maintenance under the bridge. So it's really a small parcel. The state will retain ownership of the majority of that cul-de-sac for turnarounds and other things. So we just appreciate everyone kind of laying out the welcome mat tonight for FW Webb to take over a vacant building and come to Schenectady. Thank you.
If there's no question, I need a motion to call for a public hearing.
Oh, Jesus.
It can't be done yet because we have to identify when the public hearing is going to be, but if we don't have the dimensions for the public to review for abandoning it, we can't do it just yet. So I think unless we know exactly when the public hearing is going to be, but we're going to have the materials for the public.
So can we put it out in 4 weeks?
Well,
Go ahead.
could we move ahead and the survey is going to be exact, even though we know the parameters now, which the representation that is here would not deviate from what the survey is going to show. And so it's not, the survey is going to be a technical description where this is a city engineer or somebody, that Metroplex could put dimensions on that.
If we can put the dimensions on it, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's the, obviously a survey is going to be more precise, but if we have the dimensions and the general overlay of the area that's going to be abandoned, then we can move it to a public hearing. But we're going to need obviously a bit more detail than just, I think, what we have before us. So it can be moved to a public hearing as long as we have the information for the public.
Go ahead.
So I just want to be clear, we're going to have the public hearing date pushed out a little bit because as I understand from Mr. Wallen, that you need to make sure that all the information is in place. So we can call for it, but I suggest that we put it out a little bit further as opposed to the normal cycle.
Yes.
So we make sure we have all the materials.
That works. Part of this is for the city clerk to be able to provide notice in advance for the public.
You have a date in mind?
And if, Madam President, if you called for the public hearing and we have the information, you could amend that call for the public hearing, the date when it goes out. If in fact we don't have the information, what you're suggesting, we could move it out probably another 2 weeks. So in fact we could then have everything in place.
That's good.
And we do have a fifth Monday.
I was
Yes.
just about to say, so,
Oh, boy.
yeah, I'm sorry, I was just wanting to make sure we were aware of that. So if we're talking about getting the detailed information and kind of keeping on a schedule, and we have a fifth Monday, because typically it wouldn't be this public hearing, the next committee meeting, we would say reminder that we have it. So that's actually like 5.
It's the 14th.
Yeah, so we're quite a ways out, so I think we're gonna have plenty of time, especially because of how important
If
the
it gets
project is
passed on.
for everyone, how quick that we can do this quick little boundary. So I think that
You have enough
typical
time?
schedule, yeah, I think we're gonna have plenty because we have that extra week afforded to us.
Okay.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Okay. So we can move this here to call for public hearing on November the 14th.
I'm bad luck, I'll let Carl. Second.
All in favor? Thank you. All right, we got that one solved. The next item is agreement between the city and the Schenectady County related to vehicle repairs. Mr. Colvin.
Thank you. Schenectady County currently provides the city with mechanical repair and preventive maintenance services for city vehicles. Not all vehicles, but a good number of vehicles that we can't do in-house. The agreement currently between the county and the city is out of date. We've been working off a technically expired agreement using the same terms that we've been applying. The proposed agreement, which there's a copy attached to the materials, requires the city to pay $58.72 per hour for work completed. That does account for not just the wage of those county workers, but also, the benefit, the pro rata share of the benefits that they make. There's also we would be required to pay for the actual part expense. So if we're, getting parts installed on our vehicles, we'd be paying just, exactly what the county's paying. There's a 5% disposal charge and a 1.5% vehicles charge. And there's a proportionate share of overhead expenditures. Anthony, the mayor, Paul LaFawn and I met with the county on a number of occasions to negotiate the terms of this. From a finance perspective, Anthony is comfortable with the terms of this agreement. From an operational standpoint, Paul LaFawn is comfortable with the terms of this agreement. This agreement technically, we were trying to date it to back when the sales tax agreement was going to take effect, so going back to December 1st of 2020, and it would run through November 30th, 2028, which is the term of that sales tax agreement. And it will continue on beyond 2028 unless there's a 30 days notice that's provided, just so that we have something in effect through that date if for some reason we haven't renegotiated the terms and gotten approved by council at that point. As I said, this has been negotiated in multiple sessions. It provides a clear and concise method and, to be frank, a fair way of dividing the city's share of the work that the county is doing on our behalf. So I'm seeking committee approval of this request for the full council's consideration of a resolution approving this agreement.
Any question on this? Go ahead, please.
So I see there's a lot of exclusions in here, and all the things that this contract will not cover. So how are those things covered? I mean, the towing you don't have to explain, I get that. But so all the other things like welding or fabrication, those kind of services that are excluded under this contract, how are we getting that work done?
I believe the welding and fabrication we do in-house.
We've been operating with general principles about that for the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is not, so this portion of the contract is not new. That is the same terms that were in there the last time. There were certain things, as I said, we negotiated, to our advantage. Mm-hmm. The exclusion, like for example, the golf course contract, like we handle that mm-hmm. Through our vendor if we can't do it in-house. We handle the towing, obviously, through private contractors. Mm-hmm. The paint work, body work. We do a lot of that through outside private companies if necessary. A lot of that would happen through our insurance company if we're having to have body work done, because that would generally mean that there was an accident. As I mentioned, the welding and fabrication we do in-house. And then reporting of accidents, that's something that is required of our staff if they get into an accident.
Is there any vendor locally that we do? I've seen police cars at, a lot of them, at one time at a particular garage. So are there outside vendors that are doing work for us as well on police cars?
I don't know exactly who's doing it. I think in the past we may have used Auto Solutions at one point. I wouldn't be the resource to tell you where our police cars are going if in fact there's an accident. I believe we may still be using Auto Solutions in some fashion if there is an issue, but obviously, we have to follow the purchasing policy, and if it's the insurance company that comes into play, we go through the insurance company, and that has happened.
So if I could just have a listing of where we get the other work done. You don't have to do it right now, you can just send the list.
Mechanically, it's either the city of Schenectady or the county does the mechanical work. But Auto Solutions and the place on Balltown Road, they take care of all the lights, the sirens, and all the other stuff. And also, we have 3 places that do body work, but any of the mechanical work is done by the county or the city.
I understand that, so I'm just asking for work other outside of that, if we just have a list. I heard what you said, and I won't remember it all, and didn't write it all down, so that would be helpful.
Any other question on this item?
I'll move it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is review of the 2023 budget public hearing held on 10/11/22. I think that's a placeholder. We continue to have our budget hearing. The second session is tomorrow, third session, and 4 sessions to follow. So we'll continue to review the budget and that, and I don't think we have to do anything on this item. Do you have any on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I believe it's the first time in modern history nobody has stood up and criticized the mayor's budget at the initial public hearing. So.
No,
We did have
I
one,
said that.
we had one speaker, and she was in favor of some things that were in the budget,
Yeah.
so.
Good work, yeah. If there's nothing else before finance, I have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Mr. Mudavarian, could you call this committee to order, Mr.?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to call the Government Operation Committee to order. One item here is implicit bias training, Ms. Porterfield.
Thank you. So at our last committee meeting, we discussed this and all agreed that we would want to move forward with that. Since that time, I reached out to our HR department, and so they looked into it and came up with something that our insurance company may be able to cover. I just want to keep in mind this is without cost. And also, I asked all council members if they had any group, and I didn't get anything except a response by way of council member Totoro. She had someone reach out to me, so and so I have that one. And then additionally, there's a New York State agency, again without cost, that would be have the ability to do it. So at this point in time, I'm asking for each of them to put forward what the training would look like, what it would include, so we can make some decisions around that. I understand that we're in our budget season, so don't anticipate us having been able to do this in October, but I would hope by November we'd be able to identify and move forward with that. And cost was a factor, and we wanted to make sure that we get quality even if we don't pay for it. So again, our insurance company is looking at doing it free of cost, but again, we want to see what they're offering, and also the New York State agency. The other referral was by a private person who there would be a cost attached to it. So I will bring back what we have in the next committee meeting.
I did have a conversation with a person I used to volunteer with, who now is the VP for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Berkshire Bank, and she just sent me her list of referrals. So I have, I think there's 7 or 8 different groups that she identified. Some of them are out of town, but I just printed it today, so to bring it to you tonight.
Okay, very good. So I'll look into all of those, and
You
again,
probably know some of those, I would imagine.
I'm sorry?
I think you probably know some of the same, some of those consultants. They've been doing it for a while.
So cost also will be a factor, so.
Right, no, I know, yep.
So I'll bring back to you the results of that, and hopefully we can plan something at least in November.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or input?
Good. You're asking for this to be back in committee next week?
Yes, well, the first week in November, yeah.
Any other questions on this? Okay. Seeing none, we have a motion to adjourn this.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
I'd like to call to order City Development and Planning. We have 5 items on the agenda. The first one is to authorize the city engineers to investigate the feasibility of physically establishing the paper street known as Revere Avenue. Mr. Wallen?
Thank you. I'm going to ask that everyone bear with me on this. This is a new thing for me, as in my 10 years we have not looked at the feasibility of investigating paper street. I would like to start just by kind of reading what I wrote here. So Revere Avenue is a paper street. It's approximately 730 feet long, 60 feet wide, located between Rosa Road and Sheridan Avenue. The city of Schenectady is comprised of numerous paper streets which were established during the city's expansion. While the majority of the paper streets in the city have been formally developed, there are several that still exist scattered throughout the city. These paper streets are owned by the city, similar to physically constructed public roadways and parks, but are often undeveloped in wooded areas. So that's what we have with regard to Revere Avenue. The owners of several properties, 13 to be exact, are petitioning the city as per section C of the city's charter to have this area investigated for establishment, as they own these several parcels, and as of right now they are unusable. The owners of the parcel are here. They have owned them, as it says in this in their letter, for several years, paying taxes on them. The parcels are without Revere Avenue established, landlocked, and essentially unusable. And they're looking for the city council to authorize myself to investigate the feasibility of establishing this roadway so that they may look to develop the parcels. Mr. Earl, if you mind speaking on your behalf for a second, I would appreciate it, just about what we've gone through, unless you don't feel comfortable with that.
No, I can, well, you have a letter there that...
I do. Right here in the council has it as well. I just wanted to put a face to the...
My name is Frank Kerba. My wife actually owns the property. The property has been owned by the family. Her father started purchasing this property in the, I believe it was the late 50s, early 60s. And over that period of time, we were looking at various, development projects. And what we found is we applied for a change of zoning there because it was zoned as single family, which didn't make that much sense anyways because it's surrounded by apartment complexes. So what we did is we were talking, we had some people that were interested in developing the property. And we started taking a look at it. And there's some conditions there that need to be addressed, that are really, federal regulations. And that's why we've asked the city to investigate the feasibility of installing, putting the street in, whether it can be done or whether it can't be done. And just as a history, when the property was transferred back in the back in around 2010, we did deal with the assessor at the time, and the property was established at a certain value. In other words, as building lots. And we're finding out right now that there's some things that need to be taken care of if indeed they are actually going to be classified as building lots. And that's why we asked the city to investigate this and to put the street in. We do have people that are interested in putting the apartments in there that we were talking about.
So as this is new, as per the city's charter, we are, he has petitioned the city. He does, they own a majority of frontage on, as per the charter. And it comes to the city council. The one point I will make an emphasis why we have the property owner in the room with us is as it comes to fee. Typically, similar to a sidewalk assessment, the costs of what the city incurs are assessed onto the property owners via frontage. I think in the letter it talks about these unusable parcels, and the property owners have already spent to date in excess of $100,000 in taxes. So I believe what their request would be is that the city go forward with absorbing the costs on the idea that they have already paid so much money in excess of the taxes that they have. They haven't gotten anything. They don't have sewer or water or any kind of access to the parcels. They are paying their taxes, and I think that they would like that. So that's something that the council, from a perspective, is if we want to go forward as per this and assess the owner here. I don't know how that conversation occurs. I don't know if that's through the law department or how that actually works, but I think that is something that the property owners would want to be aware of, how that would work and the costs. So that's why this is more of a kind of a discussion. We have people here and how we would like to go forward with something like this.
So what are we talking about in terms of cost, or have you any idea?
I don't have a lot of idea right now, given the size, what we're gonna do. I haven't established a project such as this, and we were talking about a lot of baseline. I don't know if we're, possibly a survey to establish all the limits, some flagging out there, which has been previously done a little bit, and then, we want to understand there is a grade change, and what our options are going forward. One of the things that we want to make sure is just how possible it is to go forward. What are our options? One of the things we have talked about casually as this is that, does the road go through the property or does it have to stop? Are the lots going to be most likely merged? Is a part of this right-of-way going to be abandoned like we talked about previously and then sold for the betterment of the development? There's a lot that could happen. And then at the end of the day, if somehow the feasibility is that it cannot be developed, then what is that step? Because then what we have are numerous private parcels as outlined as the tax maps that are undevelopable. And so, there's really very limited use of having a park in that area. It's that kind of conversation of then what do we do and how does the homeowners and their properties fit into this is, we don't have a lot of properties that are similar where it's numerous properties that have no access. We had situations like this in Woodlawn, by the Woodlawn Preserve, and as part of Steve Streichman's kind of last things that he did, we consolidated and tried to take as many and just expand the park, but this isn't adjacent to really any major park. So it's a little complex in how we deal with it. I'm not saying we can't do it, but per this, I need to, have some buy-in from the council.
Ms. Patrick?
So what you're asking us for tonight is just to be able to have you be able to move ahead with exploring the feasibility of
Yep.
how this can happen. And
Yep.
then you'd probably come back to us
I can
with-
come back with your costs. Yeah, like I said, this is a new process. So if you are authorizing me and you're comfortable with going down this road, I can talk with, I have numerous firms on a retainer about getting some costs about what it would be to do, and then I can bring those costs back to you and we can discuss that. I just wanted to make sure that, we're being transparent with the costs and the process. And I believe, and once again, you can speak more to this if you want as a property owner. I don't believe the idea is that this would be assessed to them. I don't know what your investment would be into the parcels. That's kind of why I invited the property owners to speak on their behalf. But typically, if this was, 1890, we're developing a street in the city, the owners of that property, all of them would petition. We would build the street, put in the utilities, sidewalks, and just like we would put them on the tax rolls, and they would pay an assessment for that work to be done, which is very similar to the sidewalk program.
Gotcha.
And I'd also have to work with Mr. Colden and them on the property owners that are not necessarily adjacent, because also as per the sidewalk assessment, if the majority do sign up, it is assessed to those that even did not sign up. So that could be the case in this situation. So there could be a cost sharing by people that don't even know that we're having this conversation right now.
Mr. Fulton?
Just to clarify, the threshold under the city charter that Mr. Wallen identified is 25% of the owners, 25% of the linear ownership, footage ownership. So here we're at, I did the calculation that you have there, 58%. And Mr. Wallen, I don't know if you know this, I don't recall exactly. I believe there's only one other owner. I think all the other parcels are owned by one other individual or, married couple, something along those lines.
I believe you're right, yes.
Yeah.
There's one other property owner involved.
Ms. Patrick?
I have no problem with, asking Mr. Wallen to move forward with, figuring out more details of the feasibility of this and then coming back to us, so.
I don't either. I mean, we're not committing to whatever the financial parts of it, so we definitely need to know that. So-
Okay. All right, well then, we're all up to speed, and I can give
Do you
costs.
need it?
Right. Anyone else?
No, I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Move forward.
All right.
So I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Wallen.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the planning commission appointments. Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would put forward two names. Michael Terno and Hayden Linder, whose resumes are attached, and looking for favorable consideration from the council.
Any questions? Entertain a motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nice to see some young people getting involved.
The next item on the agenda is the reappointment for the Board of Assessment Review. All of you got the letter from the county finance department saying that Mr. Williams, who is currently on the board, his term expired on September 30th, and so this is just looking to do a reappointment to that board. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So,
Second.
All's in favor?
aye.
Next item on the agenda is ceremony resolution for PD Brothers, 55 years of business. Mr. Palomino.
PD Brothers has been in business 55 years, and it's just a recognition of their 55 years of business, as well as Mr. PD's philanthropic activities throughout the community.
We'll be doing this at the council meeting? Okay.
So-
Any other-
so
I'll entertain a
moved.
motion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The final two items on the agenda are property sales, which we would go into executive session for. Entertain a motion to go to executive.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're in executive session, and the public who's left has to leave.